Ever been led by a leader who just can't lead? And I'm not just talking about sports, it could be in your workplace or some organized activity. You're sat there thinking, how on earth did this person get in charge? We've all probably been there, and let's be real, it's mad frustrating. It's wild because proper leadership is rare. Whether it's knowing how to set proper standards, communicate clearly, or just get the best out of people, most don't have this skill set. One of the worst feelings in the world is to be led by someone who isn't up to the job. Maybe you're on the other side of things. You're a leader and you're here thinking, how can I level up? How do I get my team moving in the right direction? Whether you're managing a company, a team, or coaches, or group of people, you want to be that person who brings success, who makes things happen, and who sets standards so high people have no choice but to raise their game. If that's you, then trust me, you're in the right place. Because today, we're going to get into the mind of someone who mastered the art of leadership, Alex Ferguson. You might not have time to sit around and read his autobiography, so I'm here to break down the real gems for you. By the end of this, you know exactly why he was one of the best to ever do this. We're talking 27 years in charge of Manchester United, winning everything there is to win. And it wasn't just about football, it was about mastering leadership on every single level. How did he maintain control for so long, adapt, rebuild, and still come out on top? And how did he do all of that while managing egos, navigating the media, and keeping everyone from the youngest players to the biggest stars aligned to one vision? If you're serious about learning what it takes to be a great leader, who not only wins but continues winning consistently and successfully, then stay locked in. This is how control, communication, delegation, and understanding people made Alex Ferguson the greatest. Let's take a step back to Govan, Glasgow, the shipbuilding district where Alex Ferguson's remarkable journey began. This was a working class neighbourhood where survival meant hard work, grit, and determination. It wasn't a place for the privileged or well connected. It was a place where you fought hard for everything you had. For Ferguson, growing up in Govan instilled a sense of resilience and drive that would later define his success. Those early years and those early days, he often felt underestimated to some degree. There was a journalist that wrote in one of the papers, after he had got a string of wins, "He's done well considering he's from Govan." Imagine the disrespect. But for Ferguson, that was fuel. He turned those judgments into motivation, refusing to let his humble origins dictate his potential. As he once stated himself, origins should never be a barrier to success. A modest start in life can be a help more than a hindrance. Ferguson embraced his roots. He was proud of his roots. And he found them to be what motivated him and what enabled him to be the successful individual he was. Reflecting on his upbringing, Ferguson said, "It's precisely because I started out in the shipbuilding district of Glasgow that I achieved what I did in football." He carried this pride in his identity throughout his career, drawing strength from the hard-working, no-nonsense culture of Govan. For Ferguson, the resilience and determination of the shipyard workers weren't just inspiring, they were a blueprint for how to lead and succeed. It's no coincidence that some of the people Ferguson likes to work with, in terms of staff, in terms of the players, they had to come from a hard-working background. I think he respected the hard-working background because that's where he came from. That's what he was comfortable with. He wanted to be around people who reminded him of himself to some degree. This mindset is universal. How often have you been judged based on where you come from or what people assume about you? Ferguson's story reminds us that it's not where you start, but how you channel those early experiences to drive yourself forward and to be a success. But before Ferguson was shaping football dynasties, he had a little stint managing pubs. It's quite a surprising chapter, especially in his story, but one that shaped him profoundly. After his playing days as a striker, Ferguson turned to running pubs to secure his retirement. So he said, as football didn't offer the financial stability it does today. But this wasn't just a job to pay the bills, it became an invaluable education in leadership and people management. Pubs are raw environments full of unfiltered emotion. Ferguson learned how to handle conflict, often breaking up fights and de-escalating tense situations. Reflecting on this period, Ferguson said, "Sometimes I would come home with a split head or black eyes. That was pub life." This toughness shaped Ferguson's resilience, teaching him how to stay composed under pressure, a skill that would later define him on the touchline. But managing pubs wasn't just about dealing with chaos. Ferguson also developed a deep understanding of human nature and psychology. He observed people at their most vulnerable, frustrated, hopeful, or just looking for an escape. Pubs taught me about people, their dreams and their frustrations in a way that helped me understand the football trade. These experiences taught him to read people, their motivations, emotions, and how to earn their trust. It was here that Ferguson learned the value of empathy and the importance of understanding the why behind people's actions. And then there was the financial side of things. Now, the book doesn't actually make a connection between Ferguson's business acumen in terms of running the pubs and the business side of running a football club. However, I do think there's a connection and there were some dots to connect. When in a pub requires strategic thinking about planning. Take the Wembley Cup for example, a scheme that Ferguson introduced where regulars saved money over 2 years to afford tickets to the FA Cup final. It was an early example of his ability to think long term and manage resources effectively. In my time in the dugout, I advanced from managing East Sterling players on £5 a week to selling Cristiano Ronaldo to Real Madrid for £80 million. Those early lessons in balancing budgets and making smart decisions with limited resources would prove invaluable in football management. I found it quite interesting as well because oftentimes Ferguson would talk about player transfers like Beckham and Veron, and he would talk about negotiating with the clubs and how he would stand on ensuring that some of the players will not leave for the value that they thought those players were worth. I didn't think that managers had that kind of power or were involved in those kind of negotiations, but I guess during the time of Ferguson, in early days of management, that was probably the norm. This kind of foundation in understanding human nature and financial management became a cornerstone of his managerial style. It wasn't just about controlling chaos, it was about learning to navigate complex personalities and emotions, a skill that would prove invaluable when managing elite footballers later in his career. Again, for Ferguson, relationships were central to his success, both personally and professionally. His friends from childhood, Tommy, Duncan and Jim, had a profound impact on how he viewed loyalty and trust. These bonds were formed in nursery. Although life took them in different directions, they reconnected in 1986 at Duncan's 25th wedding anniversary. Now, this reunion couldn't have come at a more pivotal time. Ferguson was on the brink of leaving everything he knew in Scotland to take on the monumental challenge of managing Manchester United. The gathering with his lifelong friends reminded him of the importance of staying grounded and valuing the people who had always supported him. He later reflected, "Those friendships sustained me at Manchester United." But these lessons extend beyond his personal life. Ferguson carried this belief in loyalty into his career, emphasizing trust and connection with his players and staff. He didn't just build teams, he built families. And this is crucial because Ferguson worked with a bunch of different people, which I believe he would consider family, for probably over 20 years. And that makes sense. If you're working with someone for that amount of time, you probably start to consider them family. But also, I guess on the flip side, you have to take into consideration, for you to work with someone for that long, you must enjoy working with them. There's a level in which the relationship had grown to in which you become like family. And I think that was key in terms of the relationships he nurtured and how he was able to nurture specific relationships. Ferguson understood that loyalty wasn't just earned, it was nurtured. If you give trust, you will receive it back. For many of us, life gets busy and we drift apart from close friends. But Ferguson's story is a reminder of how important it is to maintain those close relationships. They provide stability, perspective, and strengthen you when you need it most. When you're managing a football club or navigating your own life, the people you surround yourself with matter more than anything. Ferguson's managerial journey began at East Stirlingshire, a modest club where he quickly established his no-nonsense approach. There's one particular incident that stands out with one of the top players at East Stirlingshire at the time, Jim Meakin. Jim Meakin decided to take a holiday mid-season. Ferguson was very firm and straightforward with him. If you go, don't bother coming back. Despite pleas from others, including Jim Meakin's father-in-law, Ferguson refused to back down. Now, this wasn't just about being rigid, this was about setting a standard. And Vince Lombardi talks about how important it is to set standards, and Bill Belichick, when he first came into New England Patriots, it was very important for him to set standards and for the players to understand what kind of standards were being set and how they needed to follow them. For Ferguson, it was the same. Ferguson understood that letting one player get away with bending the rules would erode the team's discipline. It was here that he first demonstrated his ability to enforce structure and accountability, qualities that would later become hallmarks of his leadership. But Ferguson's approach wasn't just about discipline. He understood how to use his quick temper as a tool, striking the balance between fear and respect. As he once explained, "Having a quick temper helped because my mentality came through. It was a useful tool. I just waded right in." This ability to establish authority while inspiring respect became a defining feature of his leadership style. Ferguson's leadership wasn't just about enforcing rules. He had a firm understanding of people. He had a unique ability to balance firmness with empathy, creating an environment where players respected him deeply. As he once said, "You can be firm, but you must never be unfair." This balance was evident throughout his career. Cristiano Ronaldo talks of an example where his father fell seriously ill and Ferguson gave him the time off to be with his family, stating that family always came first. This simple act of kindness and empathy left a lasting impression on Ronaldo. Ronaldo would go on to later say Ferguson treated him like a son and he saw Alex Ferguson as a father figure. But Ferguson also knew when to challenge his players, when to push them to their limits, motivating them to perform at their best while holding them accountable. Even during these tense moments, Ferguson had the ability to inject humour to diffuse situations. It's this balance between approachability and authority. He made himself approachable. That earned him the trust and the loyalty of his teams and the players that played under him. Whether it was managing Roy Keane's fiery personality or guiding Ryan Giggs' quiet brilliance, Ferguson's ability to adapt his approach to the individual was key to his success. What really set Ferguson apart was his dominance and control. The control I was able to exert over Manchester United was a privilege few managers will ever know. This was about control over people, the dressing room, the media, everything. When you're in charge of a massive club like Manchester United, everything matters, and the moment you lose focus, it creates a domino effect and everything falls apart. Ferguson could never let that happen. Before we get into Ferguson's lessons, we have to talk about how he got there. Ferguson's success is unparalleled, however, he didn't get there alone. He learned from one of the very best, and that man's name was Jock Stein. Stein wasn't just a mentor, he was a serial winner, winning the European Cup with Celtic in 1967 and multiple Scottish championships. Learning from someone with that level of success will automatically put you ahead of your peers because the invaluable lessons you'll consciously and subconsciously take in. This kind of reminds me of Phil Jackson wearing his championship rings to practice. It's the subtle reminders of championship pedigree. When it came to Ferguson's education, it wasn't so much about tactics. Every coach has tactics. Jock Stein taught him how to manage people, how to control the dressing room, and how to handle conflict. Never tear down players in public. Always resolve disputes in the office. Those players have mothers. Resolve the dispute in the office. Jock Stein also showed Ferguson the importance of giving all the praise to the players. There was a specific game in which John Stein's team won, and Ferguson was questioning Jock Stein on his tactics or his approach to the game. Ferguson was ready to take notes on some tactical changes or formation setup, but Jock Stein simply pushed the focus to the players' work ethic and ability. He never attempted to take any credit. How often do we see managers or leaders lose control because they embarrass their people in public? Jock Stein's approach was all about respect, and it wasn't just for the players, but for their families too. This is an aspect that is often overlooked. The approach shaped Fergie's philosophy and proved that winning is as much about your man management as it is about your tactics. Alex Ferguson's handling of David Beckham and Roy Keane stands out as a masterclass in managing star personalities. Both Beckham and Keane were not just exceptional players but also dominant figures in the dressing room. Ferguson's ability to maintain control and keep the team focused on winning highlights his exceptional leadership and unwavering commitment to the club's success. From his early days, David Beckham showed an incredible drive to excel and quickly became a key player alongside legends like Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, and the Nevilles. Ferguson saw Beckham as more than just a player, he was like a son to him as he watched him grow and develop. However, as David Beckham's fame grew beyond the pitch, Ferguson began to notice a shift. David Beckham started to prioritise his personal brand over the team's success, which became a source of frustration for Alex Ferguson. A memorable incident that symbolised this tension was when Beckham refused to remove his beanie hat during a team lunch to reveal a new haircut. Now, this wasn't just about a hat, it represented Beckham's increasing focus on his image rather than the team's unity. This was probably the last straw. I was starting to despair of him. He had lost his focus and no one was bigger than Manchester United. This incident highlighted Ferguson's priority, maintaining the integrity and the focus on the team over individual ambitions. Despite their close relationship, Ferguson made the tough decision to let Beckham move to Real Madrid for £25 million, emphasising that the club's success was paramount. Roy Keane was another powerhouse at Manchester United, known for his intense drive and leadership on the pitch. Ferguson valued Keane's passion and saw him as a crucial motivator within the dressing room. He was the most influential presence in the dressing room in the time we worked together. Keane's relentless energy pushed the team to perform at their best, but his inability to adapt to his declining physical capabilities and his outspoken nature eventually led to conflicts. Ferguson tried to manage Keane by transitioning him to a deeper role to preserve his career, rather than his box-to-box style that we had become accustomed to seeing. But Keane to some degree resisted these changes. The breaking point came when Keane launched a verbal attack against his teammates in an unaired Manchester United TV interview, threatening the team's unity. Ferguson had to act decisively. The one thing I could never allow was loss of control. Realising that Keane's behaviour was risking the team's harmony, Ferguson made the difficult decision to let him go, prioritising the collective good of the team. Ferguson's approach with Rio Ferdinand was slightly different. I told Rio that if any of these distractions reduced his effectiveness as a footballer, he would not be with us much longer because I would not be picking him. But he responded well to these warnings. We devised a system in which his agent was obliged to tell us everything he was doing, which gave us greater control. By setting clear boundaries and expectations, Ferguson ensured that Rio's growing brand did not interfere with his performance or the team's objectives. This contrast with David Beckham and Roy Keane highlights Ferguson's refined approach to managing star players. Alex Ferguson's time at Manchester United was defined by his control over the dressing room and his ability to make tough decisions to maintain a winning mentality. Whether dealing with Beckham's increasing celebrity status or Roy Keane's fiery passion, Ferguson consistently prioritised the club's success above all else. His leadership wasn't based solely on enforcing discipline, it was about creating an environment where the team's goals always came first. Alex Ferguson had an amazing ability to control both the dynamics of the game and the narrative surrounding Manchester United. His use of psychology to motivate his team or play mind games with the opposition was interesting to watch and read about. Ferguson's psychological tactics were subtle yet highly effective. There's no way I will talk about psychology and not mention Fergie time. The tapping of his watch towards the end of a game became legendary. It wasn't about the actual time, it was the effect it had on the other team, not ours. When Ferguson tapped his watch, opponents would start to feel the pressure, believing that United were about to score in the dying minutes. This created a sense of urgency and anxiety that often led to opponents believing United would always find a way to score. The players wholeheartedly believed this too, and this made them finish strongly in games, especially when they were losing. Most of Ferguson's so-called tricks were either by accident or unintentional, according to Fergie. Now, I do believe sometimes he knew what he was doing to provoke his colleagues and opposing teams. In general, across my career, people always assumed I had elaborate Machiavellian strategies. In reality, I didn't set out to master the dark arts. It wasn't just with the media, but he had to psychologically motivate his players too. Ferguson understood the importance of honesty and accountability within the team. He balanced criticism with encouragement, ensuring players knew where they stood while also believing in their potential to improve. I would say to anyone whose confidence was wavering that we were Manchester United and we simply could not allow ourselves to drop to the level of other teams. That winning culture could be maintained only if I told a player what I thought about his performance in a climate of honesty. This approach built a culture of accountability. Players were expected to take responsibility for their actions and performances, fostering a winning mentality. Ferguson's honesty helped maintain high standards and kept the team's morale intact, even during challenging times. Ferguson's relationship with the media was another cornerstone of his management style. Back in his early days, the media landscape was different. The digital age has sped everything up and became more pervasive. There's an art to not exposing the weaknesses of your team. Ferguson shielded his players from public scrutiny, managing what the media could and couldn't see. When faced with tough questions, he remained composed and strategic, ensuring that the team's focus remained on winning rather than getting distracted by off-field issues. A piece of advice from Paul Doherty at Grenada TV encapsulates Ferguson's media strategy. Put your game face on. Every press conference and media interaction was meticulously handled. Ferguson knew how to steer conversations, deflect negativity and highlight the team's strengths. This not only protected the players but also maintained a positive image of the club, which was crucial both for team morale and public perception. Ferguson emphasised the importance of maintaining a strong and confident public image. Experience helped. I reached a point in my Friday press conferences where I could see the line a journalist was pursuing. Ferguson knew how to read the media's intentions and respond accordingly. Alex Ferguson's brilliant use of psychology and media management was instrumental in building and maintaining Manchester United's legacy. His ability to control the narrative, manage strong personalities and keep the team focused on their goals were crucial to their success. Between 2003 and 2006, Manchester United faced some tough challenges. Key players like Peter Schmeichel, David Beckham, Roy Keane and Jaap Stam either were all aging together or were sold. Unfortunately, the club didn't have a solid plan to replace these veterans, leading to some poor signings. Players like Jemba and Kleberson didn't fit the team's needs, highlighting flaws in Ferguson's transfer strategy during this period. Ferguson acknowledged it was the classic mistake of signing players who looked good on paper but didn't fit our needs. These missteps underscored the need for a new approach. Instead of chasing established stars, Ferguson shifted his focus to developing young talent, setting the stage for future successes. Learning from the mistakes that were made, Ferguson revamped his transfer strategy by targeting young and high potential players. This change led to the acquisition of Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo, whose impacts were later transformative. By investing in youth, Ferguson ensured sustained success and injected fresh energy into the squad. A cornerstone of United's strategy was the integration of the class of 92 players like Ryan Giggs, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes and the Neville brothers. This blend of homegrown talent with seasoned veterans created a balanced and resilient team. Although they were brought through in the early 90s, this philosophy was what Ferguson needed to get back to. Ferguson understood that maintaining this balance was crucial for continued dominance in English football, hence why they had to get back to this foundation. The partnership between Ferguson and David Gill was pivotal in refining the club's transfer strategy, post-2006. Gill played a key role in identifying and securing young talent, ensuring that the club's investments aligned with long-term goals. Their collaborative efforts turned around the transfer market missteps, leading to successful signings and reinforcing Manchester United's competitive edge. Ferguson's ability to delegate was crucial to his success. He trusted key figures like Carlos Queiroz, who adapted United's playing style, which was pivotal to their European success. Carlos's ability to speak multiple languages, including Portuguese, was key to enabling players like Ronaldo, Anderson, and the De Silva brothers, and Nani to settle in at United. Ferguson had people like Eric Harrison, who focused on youth development. Staff members like Mike Phelan, Steve McLaren, and Brian Kidd also played essential roles in nurturing talent and maintaining team structure. It was often said players like Rio Ferdinand and Gary Neville noted that Ferguson rarely took training sessions, allowing specialists like Carlos to handle tactics and strategy. This delegation not only streamlined operations but also empowered his staff to excel in their roles, contributing to the team's overall success. Alex Ferguson's strategic adaptations ensured Manchester United remained at the forefront of football. By fostering a culture that valued youth development, strategic delegation, and continuous innovation, Ferguson maintained the club's legacy of success. His focus on building a strong core team and trusting his staff allowed United to navigate challenges and seize opportunities effectively. Ferguson's reflection at Harvard Business School distilled what made United great. Your players, your staff, and your chief executive are the most important part of your job because you deal with them every day. The rest, you deal with them as they come along. Ferguson's time at Manchester United is a masterclass in leadership, adaptability, and strategic planning. By learning from past mistakes, embracing youth, and empowering his team, he cemented his legacy as one of football's greatest managers. His ability to maintain control, manage strong personalities, and keep the team focused on collective goals ensured that Manchester United remained a dominant force in football for decades. From his gritty beginnings in Govan to his unrivaled control and conflict management at Manchester United, Ferguson's story is a masterclass in leadership, resilience and determination. Growing up in a tough working class environment taught Ferguson the value of hard work and resilience. He didn't let humble beginnings hold him back. Instead, they fueled his drive to prove everyone wrong and achieve greatness. Whether he was running pubs or managing top-tier footballers, Ferguson honed his ability to read and understand people. This skill was crucial in building strong relationships, maintaining team morale, and handling conflicts effectively. Early on, Ferguson established a no-nonsense approach, setting clear standards and expectations. This consistency not only fostered discipline, but also created an environment where excellence was the norm. Ferguson demonstrated that effective leadership isn't just about being tough, it's also about showing empathy and support. By balancing firmness with understanding, he earned the trust and respect of his players, motivating them to give their best. His absolute control over Manchester United combined with strategic psychological tactics kept the team focused and resilient. Ferguson's ability to adapt, delegate and trust his team members ensured sustained success even during challenging times. Alex Ferguson's leadership principles offer timeless lessons. Embrace resilience, understand and support your team, set high standards and maintain strategic control. By doing so, you can build a legacy of success and inspire those around you to reach their full potential. Thank you for watching. I trust you learned something to take away from one of the greatest to ever do it. Another journey on past lessons for future wins.